Hi, I'm Karan Thapar. Over the last few years, I hope you've been watching my program, The Interview on the Wire. During that period, I've interviewed doctors, politicians, businessmen, scientists, authors, and even the occasional Nobel laureate. For me, it's been exciting. I hope it's been enjoyable for you. But these, as you know, are tough times, and if this program is going to remain bold, independent, and sometimes even defiant, then I think we need your support. At the end of the day, it's a truism, but editorial independence is best defended by the viewers. So if you would like this program to remain the way it is, forthright, outspoken, and interesting, then would you consider supporting us? All you have to do is to click on the description at the bottom. But more than anything else, I hope you will continue to watch the interview. Your viewership means an awful lot to me. Hello and welcome to a special interview for The Wire. Now that both the Kuki and the Maite have expressed their grievances and revealed the sharp divisions between them, there's need to look forward and ask a simple but critical question. What are the steps necessary to heal the divisions in Manipur and restore peace? That and only that subject is the one that I shall discuss today with one of the elder statesmen of Manipur, a former Speaker of the Manipur Assembly and a 5-term Congress MLA, Hemochandra Singh. Mr. Singh, let's start with the measures announced by the Home Minister after his recent 4-day visit to Manipur. He's announced a judicial inquiry under a retired Chief Justice of the Guwahati High Court, a peace committee under the Governor of the state, a inter-agency unified command under Mr. Kuldeep Singh, and 6 separate CBI investigations. As a former Speaker of the Manipur Assembly, how do you assess these steps as credible ways of trying to restore peace and calm?
Well, I welcome the step, although I have spoken on national television that the Home Minister should have reacted early, and there was a little lack of prompt action from the union government on the issue. But having said so, the steps which was announced by the Home Minister, particularly the judicial probe, is welcome. But my only take is that the judicial inquiry or the probe should not take the time as is envisaged in the terms of reference, which is 6 months. I feel that an interim report should be first established and it should be given to fixed responsibilities.
How quickly should that happen?
I think, to my mind, it should not even take a month. I mean, it should be done very fast, whereby the inquiry also should not drag its own feet as what has happened over all commissions of inquiry. And
what about the peace committee under the governor? Is that a good idea?
Definitely, the peace committee is a good idea, but the peace committee will not function as of now. The peace committee will not be able to do its work because, as I can very simply put it, it is about dousing the flames. In fact, it is still burning. So I think the point is we have to create a conducive atmosphere first so that the peace process can happen and the civil society people on both sides can sort of start talking, but which is not happening at the moment.
So the priority is actually to douse the flames.
Absolutely, Karan, because I would say that when the house is burning, you do not go into the reasons for the fire, because you don't say that there's a gas leak or maybe it's because of a short circuit.
Put the fire out first.
Yes, put the first fire out, and putting the fire out would mean stop all these armed altercations happening and all these burnings which is happening.
You're in touch with people in Manipur. What reports are you getting about how effectively the army and the paramilitary are succeeding in putting out the flames?
In fact, not at all. Because if you look at, you must be also doing research on what is happening, because it is both ways. I mean, there's a lot of trust deficit with the army and the paramilitary forces, especially by the Maites, because they feel that probably the Assam Rifles is helping the Kukis. And cookies, on the other hand, is thinking that, you must have seen the tweet with the Indian Army has also clarified that certain Meitei officers were posted in cookie areas and all that sort of thing. So there's a whole lot of confusion happening, and the whole credibility of the institutions.
The army in particular.
The army, not in particular the army. I'm talking about all the institutions of the law enforcement agencies, like the Rapid Action Force. You know, the Rapid Action Force was found doing something funny, all that kind of a thing.
Do people in Manipur, when they report to you that the army and the paramilitary are not succeeding in dousing the flames, give you an explanation why they're not succeeding?
See, one reason could be probably there is no explicit order. Maybe that is also, I see, that is a lot of people, I'm not saying it, but a lot of people are talking about it. And the very fact that, Karan, one, for your viewers and for everybody to understand, see, Manipur is a very sensitive place where the Armed Forces Special Power Act is still in operation. It's still in operation. And we've had a long, conflict with
Can I ask you this? You said something very important. One possible explanation people in Manipur tell you is there's no explicit order.
That is what people are seeing, because there's not enforcement happening. So this is a perception. This is what...
The perception is that the civilians are not giving the correct orders to the army and the paramilitary.
Because when, except for probably the BSF of course, the army has done and is still doing the rehabilitation work. So let's not get confused.
I'll come to rehabilitation more time. Is there a need for perhaps President's rule so that the explicit order comes from Delhi?
I would feel so, because Article 355 is in operation, is promulgated or not, because as in the governor has been made the chairman of the peace committee.
It's in effect working, whether it's promulgated or not.
Yeah, whatever.
But you think now there's a need for 356 as well?
I think that would be a good thing to do, because even in spite of promulgation of 355 or whatever is in operation, when instead of the chief minister, the chairman of the unified command is today Kuldeep Singh.
Quite right.
So what I feel is that it has to work in tandem.
The great advantage of 356, if I understand correctly, is that Delhi will be then ruling Manipur through the governor.
In a manner, yes.
And therefore, this problem of explicit orders not being given to the armed forces won't exist anymore.
No, but Karan, probably I'll say yes or no, because even with 355, if the orders are clear, it can be still implemented. But yes, I'd probably go with you where you say that 356 probably will make it very clear.
Now, another problem that's going to hit Manipur perhaps in weeks is the monsoons. A lot of people have lost their homes. They're living in camps. Those camps may not be the best for the monsoon condition. How much of a concern is rehabilitation of people so that when the monsoons happen, and they're very severe in Manipur, people can actually carry on living?
Oh yes, that's a very, very severe, and that's a very, very, I think, concerning problem to me, to my mind, because, see, you're talking about cramped up camps, some subhuman conditions, and then thousands of people, both on the Kuki side and on the Meitei side. There you know that it has spilled over to Mizoram, it has spilled over to probably other cities in the northeast, and the conditions in the camps are very bad. And if you may allow me to say and to tell your viewers that probably, however, how many lives we have already lost in the crisis, probably epidemics might kill. So these are real concerns where probably the state missionary, the union government, or whatever, all agencies, I'm not restricting it to probably the union government or the state itself. I call upon the entire country. In fact, people in industry, people in all walks of life.
But what do they need to do so that the monsoons can be properly lived through?
You need to have livable houses with proper self-contained houses, self-contained townships rather. I mean, probably I would put it this way, where there are hospitals, there are probably places for children to play, and then
Can these be built in the limited time between now and the monsoons? Because I think the monsoons will come in another 3-4 weeks.
Yeah, that is a challenge, because probably that will not be able to do by the state government or other agencies. Probably where this, I don't know, the army comes into my mind, because army is an organization which probably can, come to help in these kind of emergencies.
So there are two critical priorities in your mind for the army. One, to be given a freer hand and explicit orders to restore calm and to douse the flames. And secondly, use the army's expertise to build these townships, as you call them, so that people can survive the monsoons?
That is one of the things which probably is humanitarian in nature, and rehabilitation, relocation, whatever you may say, which is required to reduce the temperatures and to make room, as you said, for the larger, for the other things to follow. That is the dialogue.
Let's look down the road. We've talked so far about certain immediate needs, dousing the flames, rehabilitating people, protecting them from the monsoons. Let's look down the road. As people view the situation, the key problem seems to be a collapse of trust between the Meitei and the Kuki. As a result, I'm told, you probably know this better, that there are very few, if any, Kuki in the valley, very few, if any, Meitei in the hill country. There's already an effective demographic separation, and that, in a sense, speaks to the collapse of trust. How do we tackle this collapse of trust?
See, Karan, this collapse of trust, although may seem to many people and probably your viewers and the platform that it has come about very suddenly and through a spark, but which is not so. It has long-standing historical structural wrongs, and that connects to land, that connects to the laws, that connects to the colonial legacy, which probably was not rectified when we joined the Indian Union in 1949 and later. When we were made a state in 1972, when neighboring states like where Mr. Iralu comes from, as you rightly said, is like from Nagaland. Nagaland was made a state in 1962. And Manipur, having had a long history of almost 2,000 years of culture and history and all, was relegated to the state, to the status of a Part C state first, sir. Current, if you know. And then a union territory, then a state. And the best thing at that time would have been to probably not insert these land issues, which was a people to people, hill to valley, which was totally sort of given a legal sanction by probably doing this MLR Act 1960.
So if I understand correctly,
yes,
that the trust issue can't be tackled unless you tackle the land issue first.
Absolutely.
Then let's come to the land issue.
Yes.
For the sake of the audience, I'll explain. The problem is an imbalance in the way the people of Manipur can access and buy land. The Meitei are 53% of the population. They live in 10% of the state, which is the valley. They cannot access land in 90% of the state, which is the hill country, because the tribal laws don't let them. On the other hand, the tribals, which are 40%, Kuki and Naga, can buy land anywhere. To the Meiteis, this looks very unfair and unbalanced. How should this be tackled?
Well, this has to be tackled through legislation in the first place, which has become very difficult. Karan, would you...
Which law in particular do you have in mind?
Well, Karan, are you familiar with an article called 371C?
Yes.
371C actually per se is an assembly within an assembly. And I'm not going into the nitty-gritties of how it was done. But then it will, throw a floodgate. 370 is already been a big issue in the country. 371C, what happens is that restricts the state government from making laws pertaining to even like the land laws in the hills. So that has been a roadblock. So coming back to your question, to make it even more clear for common understanding, we have to be allowed through legislation, through even constitutional safeguards. Amendments can be done in the Constitution.
Allowed to do what?
So that we can settle in the hills. And at least we are not talking about, one gentleman talked about 90% of the hills are 90% inhospitable, mountainous and all that. But the fact remains that we are just talking about this oval-shaped Imphal Valley, which we all talk about.
So you think we need legislation or amendment to earlier legislation which would permit the Meitei to buy and settle right through the state?
Why not? Why not? If they are ready, they are allowed to stay in the Imphal Valley irrespective of their ethnic origin. And not only the Kukis or the Nagas or the other groups of the 35 odd smaller groups, we are talking about Biharis.
I think I understand what you're saying. I'm just clarifying
the entire country is allowed to stay.
You're saying just as tribals, Kuki and Naga, can buy land anywhere in Manipur, whether it's the valley or the hill country, similarly the Meitei should be allowed to buy land anywhere in Manipur.
Absolutely, Karan, because the origins of the state of Manipur is actually manufactured. There was no difference between the hill and the valley people. We were the same people. It is a dichotomy, and then it was legalized.
Can I ask you this? How should this be done? Should it be done by giving the Meitei scheduled tribe status, which is what a lot of Meitei want, or should it be done by amending laws like the MLR Act or the 371 constitutional article? Which is the preferred way of doing this?
Both ways, both the things, because it cannot be separated from the other. The demand for scheduled tribes is a very legitimate demand, to my mind, of the Meiteis, because there is absolutely no, avenue for upward mobility. We've discussed this about the census.
Tell me something, because you're a speaker and people look up to you as an elder statesman of Manipur.
I'm not elder yet, but yes.
Elder in the sense of wise, not elder in the sense of old. I can see your position that the Meitei must be given the right to buy land all over the state, just as the tribals are.
Uniform law.
And the one way of doing that is by giving them scheduled tribe status. How would you convince the Naga and the Kuki that this is a right thing to do? Because as you know, when the Manipur High Court passed an order about scheduled tribe status, it led to the problem. How would you convince them? Because in a sense, as a politician, you have to convince them.
Karan, it's going to be difficult because, it's about perceptions. It's about perceptions. And that is not my perception. Because see, the whole thing about the scheduled tribe being given to us or not is not the issue. See, if I may,
the real issue is land.
The land issue is even more important. The socio-economic issues are more important than what probably the ST. ST is just a small part of it. ST, being an ST would mean, of course, an access to land which is habitable, which is nobody is going to go to Ukhrul, which is 1,600 feet above sea level.
But is it possible to give the access to land, which you say is the most important thing, without giving the ST as well? Would that be acceptable?
No, but that is not the point of contention at the moment. This is a demand. This is a legitimate demand. Naga people are demanding a greater, this is in the process of talks for the last 26 years. Now, these are aspirations. These are things which people want. But as of today, as I'm not trying to look like a Meitei kind of view, but which is a very, very genuine demand, because we are totally beleaguered. All our boys and girls.
Can I put this to you?
They are all going abroad, they're going out, there's a lot of imbalance in society.
You very generously accepted that convincing the Kuki and the Naga over the land issue and maybe over the ST issue is going to be difficult. Let me put you an idea that Mr. Iralu said to me in an interview, worked in Nagaland, and ask you whether something like that should be attempted in Manipur. Mr. Iralu said that he brought the different Naga factions together, and they had a similar trust problem, by encouraging chosen individuals in each community to publicly say where their community had gone wrong and to apologize to the other community. And he said once this had begun, trust automatically developed. Does something like this have to happen side by side so that the differences over land, the differences over ST can be resolved?
Absolutely, Karan. That actually should be the way forward. We don't have any other option but to take that approach and take that road. But that road is not to be seen at the moment, because that road is blocked at the moment.
Until the fires are down.
Yeah, once the speed breakers are not removed, as of now, because all these armed, I don't want to even now, you will probably get angry if I say Kuki, but like the armed, see, there's a difference between, please allow me to say this, because there's a difference between civilians, whether it could be Meiteis or it could be anybody, civilians looting arms, civilians looting arms and defending themselves, and I'm not even saying about they are infiltrators or whatever, but there's an armed, organized group shooting at them. So, this is a very big crisis.
But come back to what you were agreeing with, because I think it's such an important thing.
Yeah.
You think that the suggestion Mr. Iralu made, and which worked in Nagaland, is one that could be tried in Manipur, but after the flames are down.
Yes. We are on the same page.
So
what Mr. Iralu suggested, and he's a very, very, I respect him a lot. He's a very, very respected, citizen of this country, as well as a very respected voice in the Northeast, and he's Mr. Fizo's nephew. And what he said was very correct, in the sense that this has to be resolved through this dialogue only.
In a sense, is the dialogue the first step, and then only then
No.
can you tackle land, and only then can you tackle SD?
No, dialogue is not the first step, Karan. I didn't say that. I talked about this dousing of the flames.
No, I'm saying after the dousing of the flames.
Yes.
I'm with you completely. The dousing of the flames and the rehabilitation to ensure that the monsoons are not a problem are the
And
priority.
the temperatures coming down.
Absolutely, that's the priority.
Both sides.
But now when that's done and you look down the road, would you say the dialogue first, build the trust, then tackle land, then tackle SD?
Absolutely, because that's the right sequence. Because see, have you heard about the Kaupum Valley? Beautiful, vast valley where the Nagas are staying today. You talk about Sajik Tampak, which is a beautiful valley. Churachandpur itself is it's actually described as a mini Imphal. These are all habitable places where probably we can all think of sharing the land. And I think if we come to reason, even our Kuki brothers and our Naga brothers will probably have no objection if this trust deficit is converted into something which is of a trust surplus thing. Then if the Meiteis, Karan, embraced everybody and let their churches, masjids, you know about the Meitei Muslims.
Maite Pangal.
Yeah, I'm so happy you know that they're called Meitei Pangals and not Muslims, because they have their mosques alongside our Sanamahi. You know the Sanamahi.
Yeah. But the important point you're making
Yeah.
is that the dialogue that establishes trust has to be the first step. When that dialogue starts and trust starts developing, then you can tackle land issues and ST issues. Let me put one other thing to you. At the moment, one of the issues that's come up is the demand by Kuki MLAs, I think all 10, for what they call separate administration. Would you say, in the same sequence we've discussed, dialogue, land, ST, take that up at that stage later on?
Absolutely. To my mind, it is nothing like a political drama happening. 10 Kuki MLAs, I think probably they're under pressure. I don't know what they are probably aiming at. Things like fluttering the Indian tricolor when the Home Minister came to Churachandpur, and then in the same light, they are all BJP MLAs too, and the MLAs are supporting the government, and they are saying that you remove Biren Singh and then we'll talk. So that looks like very childish to me, and probably which is
why you're saying put it forth in the sequence.
Exactly.
Let me put this to you. One of the reasons why Mr. Iralu's idea of dialogue and trust building worked in Nagaland,
you seem to be very influenced by Mr. Iralu.
Is because he's an elder statesman of the community and acknowledged. Right?
So are you.
He's Faizo's nephew. Is there a similar person in Manipur that all communities can look up to who could take the lead?
Well, why not? I mean, Manipur is full of, very, very eminent people.
Can you identify one or two?
Well, I cannot offhand give you a name, but it exists within the Kukis, it exists within the Nagas, and I'm sure it exists between the Meiteis. You know that the first speaker of the assembly was a Kuki. We have had, one chief minister, Mr. Alimuddin Shah, was the Muslim chief minister. We've had, you must have heard about Mr. Rishank Kaishing and Mr. Yangwaso Saija. They were Tangkul leaders, but they were our leaders. They were our political leaders.
Is there a sense in which there's an onus on these elder statesmen?
I'm trying to say that we have had a very liberal.
I understand. I'm asking this. Is there a sense in which there's an onus on these elder statesmen, whether they're Kuki or Maite or Naga, to get together themselves and take the first step to start the dialogue?
No, but Karan, again, now of course that is the thing to do, but who's going to listen? Who's going to listen to you and to me? I mean, like today, it's about being, the whole system being hijacked by armed people across the border.
This is where the importance of the
national security is at stake today.
This is where the importance of the army and the paramilitary in restoring order is essential. And this is where explicit orders to them is essential.
Absolutely correct.
And this is why you believe perhaps President's rule is the answer.
No. Okay. Can I answer?
Go ahead.
See, you're talking about a very strong, vibrant India today. We are talking about the Balakot strike. We are in the NSCN-K ambushed, if you remember, 18 people. Our para-commandos went inside Burmese territory and, flushed out terrorists. So India is a very strong country today. What I feel very sad about the whole thing is that allegations can happen, but these are very well-armed, well-trained Kuki, militants who are infiltrating into Indian soil and creating havoc. And that is not acceptable to me because
It seems to me you're saying that India is a very powerful, mighty country. Why is it not exercising its power to ensure law and order and the flames are put down?
I don't know, but at least in Manipur, as it seems so, because it's a porous border. It's a porous border. And it is not like the Indo-Pakistan border. You've traveled, I've traveled. It is not sort of fenced.
So, in other words, you're saying if the state in India, the government,
the union government
wants to, it can restore order. It needs to impose its authority.
See, Karan, it's not even if it wants to, it must. See, for the
But
idea
it's not acting effectively.
for the idea of India to survive, because it is not about one group fighting with the other, or mighty civilians taking arms in desperation to defend themselves, or even the Kuki militants or whatever these poppy plantations and all this.
Let's get out of that.
Okay.
What you're saying is that the state in India, the authority of the government of India, needs to be imposed effectively and swiftly.
Absolutely, because that is the only way out.
And this is why you believe president's rule might be better, because then there's no excuse for failing to
I will
do so.
put it this way, Karan. I mean, the Article 12 of the Indian Constitution defines the state. The state as in the union government as well as the state government. We have a federal system whereby the state has to act in times of crisis
And
like this.
that's what you want the government to do. Act now.
Of course. Otherwise, how will peace come?
Let me raise a different issue with you. I'm moving beyond Manipur now.
Please.
Because I think we've explained Manipur pretty effectively.
Have I made sense to you?
You've made great sense to me. You've explained it in terms of immediate steps that are needed.
Long-term steps.
And long-term steps.
The land issue got a little left out.
The land issue, you said, would be tackled once the trust has been built up between the
But that is the structural, I'll still maintain on record, that is the structural, fundamental anomalies which were not corrected. And this hill-valley divide is a manufactured...
Absolutely. And as you very cleverly said, there has to be a sequence: build trust, tackle land, tackle ST, and leave this demand for separate administration right to the end, because you see a lot of
Not be
politics.
even discussed at the moment.
Let's then move beyond Manipur, because I think I have with me someone who understands the Northeast. I'm now talking about the whole Northeast. This is a part of India that cherishes its unique identity, and they want to protect and preserve it. And in a sense, Article 371 was created for that purpose. But many people, I'm told, are getting worried after Article 370 was abrogated literally overnight in 2019. People fear, could something similar happen in the Northeast? The Modi government has repeatedly said it won't. But that fear is still there. Is that a fear that needs to be tackled? Do we need the government to give more credible assurances? Look, your uniqueness, your identity will never be threatened by Delhi.
Yeah, Karan, that's a very nice, I think, question you put me, and thanks for that. Because the Northeast is a very, very unique bio-ethnic, place where you will not even believe that in Manipur itself, we have as many as 34, 5 smaller tribes which people don't know, and they have different dialects. And so is Assam, so is Meghalaya, so is Mizoram. And it's geopolitically a very, very sensitive zone, because China is there, Bangladesh is there, then Burma is there. So geostrategically, the so-called Eastern policy, the Southeast Asian corridor and all that, in terms of commerce and in terms of military considerations, is very, very important, probably no less important than the northern sector or Jammu and Kashmir, to my mind. So what I feel is that these coming back to your point, Article 371C is specific to Manipur, if you know. And then you have other articles specific to Nagaland, Mizoram and all that. These were all enacted in around the 1971, if you remember, because of the state.
So do you need greater assurance that
Absolutely.
371 will not be tampered with?
That is one aspect, but at the which discourse is going on, now people are probably, you are also radicalizing society. Radical views are being coming up. See, for example, 370 is now abrogated. Now with the current crisis, if it is not tackled at a very fundamental, structurally, as you rightly said, through dialogue, man to man, interactions and understanding between societies, then people will be saying that abrogate the 71C also, and then whereby
That's the danger which you want at all costs to avoid.
no. These are very dangerous trends to think about. But at the same time, even if it's 371C is scraped, even if the other, whatever controversial, whatever clauses in the Constitution are still there, but there must come. Then you have to have better solutions. You have to come out with better viable, according to the times, according which is because
What you're expressing, and I think
I don't know if I'm making it clear.
I think what the audience will have understood from you is that there is apprehension in northeastern states, in all of them, that someone may tamper with 371, and you want a clear, credible assurance that this will not happen, that your unique identity will be protected and preserved and cherished.
So can I put it in a slightly more distinct way? For example, if you remember Operation Blue Star, like it's a very, I'll just connect it to you. When I met Khushwant Singh ji, I respected him a lot, and I asked him, you're not even very religious, you don't go to the, you're not seen as a very religious man, but why have you returned your decorations when Operation Blue Star happened? His reply was that the moment I'm asked to shave my head, the moment Mr. Karan Thapar is asked not to wear his tie and not wear what you want to wear, and in other terms, if you start messing around with your identity, as in I'm giving you the example of the Operation Blue Star which happened, but if you ask a Sikh to take off his kada and all that stuff, and similarly in the case of Manipur,
don't tamper with our identity.
And so. Please, one last this thing. I think you're running out of time. If you remember, there was a huge clash into 23 years back, the 18 June incident, which led to a lot of this. The assembly was burnt, and people were killed and all that. 18 people died in Imphal itself, and there was a very, very strong demand that Article 3 of the Indian Constitution, whereby the boundaries
of each state.
Am I making sense to you?
Yeah.
I'm sure your viewers will appreciate this fact that Article 3, which is a very fundamental part of our Constitution, whereby defines the boundaries and the territory of the state, is in the hands of the Parliament. Parliament can alter at any point of time. Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, all these things have come about. So there's very strong demand. In Manipur, of course, over the period of time, 23 years down the line, people have forgotten. So there was a demand that Article 3 also should be. This is in context of your question.
Also should be what?
No, it should be given more teeth by inserting an amendment whereby northeastern states,
we're running out of time,
including Manipur, should be asked. The state assembly should ratify. The state assembly should ratify, as in Manipur Legislative Assembly should have been first. If it is not ratified by the state assembly, then these boundaries and these territories cannot be tampered with.
I'm afraid we've run right out of time, Mr. Hemochandra Singh. I thank you for joining me. I thank you for laying out in different steps and stages what you think are the solutions to the problem, both immediate as well as long term. And I'm happy that you think the most critical thing is dialogue that builds trust.
And democratic process.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Mr. Karan.
Hi, I'm Karan Thapar. Over the last few years, I hope you've been watching my program, The Interview on the Wire. During that period, I've interviewed doctors, politicians, businessmen, scientists, authors, and even the occasional Nobel laureate. For me, it's been exciting. I hope it's been enjoyable for you. But these, as you know, are tough times, and if this program is going to remain bold, independent, and sometimes even defiant, then I think we need your support. At the end of the day, it's a truism, but editorial independence is best defended by the viewers. So if you would like this program to remain the way it is, forthright, outspoken, and interesting, then would you consider supporting us? All you have to do is to click on the description at the bottom. But more than anything else, I hope you will continue to watch The Interview. Your viewership means an awful lot to me.